Ukeje, member representing Bende Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm from Abia State. I'd like to thank the leader, minority leader, for bringing this motion to the floor of the House. Another day, another tragedy, another feeling of hopelessness and helplessness on the general population, and yet another military installation decimated. Mr. Speaker, sir, my concern is that on this floor we have spoken a lot about the scourge of Boko Haram and what Boko Haram has done. In 2014, 2015, Nigeria engaged STEP. STEP was a group of people who had come in to engage with the Nigerian armed forces. And of course, they took back the areas of Bama, and they also took back the areas of Goza. Mr. Speaker, I think that that is what is responsible for the euphoric feeling that Nigeria had when we started to say that we had made some progress against Boko Haram. But Mr. Speaker, sir, we have seen in the last couple of months that Boko Haram is more emboldened. Boko Haram is swearing allegiance to ISIS West Africa. Boko Haram is reaching out to Al-Shabaab, and Boko Haram is more emboldened, and they're engaging Al-Qaeda and the Islamic Maghreb. Right now, what we have is a Boko Haram that is no more a ragtag regional army, but one ragtag Nigerian army, but one that is stretching to the regions and is now, of course, engaging 5 countries and is spreading and having very, very ambitious feelings of colonizing West Africa. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, we're not dealing with a small force anymore. As a country, Mr. Speaker, we must look at the problems that the Nigerian army has. What is the problem? The Nigerian army, of course, we've spoken several times on the floor of the House about the fact that they're ill-equipped, they're poorly motivated, and they're outmanned, outgunned, outnumbered probably by the Boko Haram. But the issue is that the Nigerian army is a colonial force. And of course, the training of the Nigerian army, unfortunately, from what we have seen today, Mr. Speaker, is not one that is as mobile and maneuverable as Boko Haram. At the time, they had said that they were taking over territory. And Mr. Speaker, they still have taken over territory. But right now, what they're doing, Mr. Speaker, is that they're targeting our men and they're decimating them. Of course, when we listen to what the government of the day has said to us, that Boko Haram is technically defeated, sometimes I feel sorry for the government, because what they find themselves in what the British would call a sticky wicket. By so, what do I mean? To come out and say that Boko Haram is overrunning us would give the impression that the terrorists are winning. And of course, the terrorists, that is what they require. They want us to say that they're winning, because that is the oxygen that they require to spread their deadly enterprise. And to say to the Nigerian people that we're winning pulls us into a false sense of security, pulls the military into a false sense of security, makes us a little more laid back, and gives the Boko Haram the ability to spring the surprises upon us that they're springing upon us. So, Mr. Speaker, what do we do? I believe that as a country, we must start to look at other countries like Pakistan that have done the same thing and fight this battle. Mr. Speaker, a situation where they say that Boko Haram is driving in convoys of cars and coming to our military formations and decimating them, Mr. Speaker, and we're sitting ducks. Surely we must have air support. Only recently, Pakistan signed an agreement with Turkey to buy 30 aircraft. And Mr. Speaker, we need air support. We should be able to take off from anywhere in 30 minutes, carpet bomb them, Mr. Speaker, sir, to take away from the audacity of Boko Haram. Mr. Speaker, as a country, we must start to change tactics. We cannot continue to say that as a government we're committed to decimating Boko Haram without doing that which we must do. The time for echo is over, Mr. Speaker, so it's time for commitment. If we go to bed and we wake up and they've decimated 114 Nigerian soldiers who make you and I sleep comfortably in the night, because of them, Mr. Speaker, we believe we're safe and they're overrun on a daily basis, then, Mr. Speaker, the reality is that Nigeria is not safe. We cannot speak about foreign direct investment. We cannot speak about a true democratic process. We cannot speak about elections if we are technically at war. Mr. Speaker, I sit on the Committee of Defense, and every year they bring to us their budget. On that budget, Mr. Speaker, there is a school called the Terrorism Training School. Every year we appropriate money for them. At the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, sir, when the budget comes back, the allocation to the Nigerian Terrorism School is zero. Mr. Speaker, if we do not change the curriculum of our military, if we still have a military that is steeped in being trained to take over other countries, Mr. Speaker, sir, not a curriculum that has moved to the same kind of mobile army that we require, Mr. Speaker, we're going to have this kind of problem. Mr. Speaker, only the other day we had an argument about $1 billion. That was what was in the budget for the military funding. We sat down, there was a very strong debate about it, $1 billion, Mr. Speaker, sir. And that was what we appropriated for the military. Mr. Speaker, I believe that the time must come where we start to ask pertinent questions. Where did the $1 billion go to? Most of the agreements that we have entered into with other countries, the United States and so on and so forth, Mr. Speaker, are only not about intelligence and training. They cannot offer us the commitment to help us in the counterinsurgency war and yet not give us the opportunity to buy the arms. Mr. Speaker, Nigeria as a country has had to navigate the CASTA laws. We've had to navigate the Leahy laws to try to even buy these arms on the open market. Mr. Speaker, there's almost a global conspiracy against us. Where we cannot buy from the United States and we try to go to Russia, the CASTA laws, which is a new law by the US Parliament, catches us, that punishes countries that go to the Soviet Union to buy arms. Mr. Speaker, we're up. We have our backs against the wall. But I believe that in the same way that the Jonathan administration did what it did by engaging people to come and work with us, I think that we should also try that now. Mr. Speaker, military formations, for me, I'm a barrack child, so for me this is very, very emotional. And I feel that these men and women who have given up their lives, Mr. Speaker, that we should give them more than a minute's silence. Their wives, their children. I'm glad I looked on the other paper today, and there's a veterans bill, Mr. Speaker. We must talk about the wives of these people. We must talk about their children, Mr. Speaker, and the government must show some commitment to doing that. I thank you.